Good afternoon, Adam. We're back at it.
Mr. Jones, always a pleasure, sir. Always a pleasure.
You're here. Happy Friday.
Cheers, man. Oh, happy Friday. Although I'll take it. It's the 4-day work week is a little nicer than the 5-day work week.
Yes, I don't disagree. I don't disagree. So where do you want to start today? What should we do?
Well, I got to tell you, man, I want to give a shout out. I've spent a lot of time talking to our various partners in the last week or two, and heard some really interesting stories and some real positive stuff. And a shout out to Susan Wessel and AIC Hotel Group. This is, the Hard Rocks in the Caribbean, the Nobu hotels, Eden Rock in Miami, etc. And, there are a lot of people that have done the right thing and followed contracts and whatnot, but AIC continues to be a leader in that space and a leader in the Caribbean and into Mexico to a great extent. But one of the things along that is they were able to maintain 90% of their employees throughout this whole madness. 90%. And there's some of these are huge hotels. And they're projecting that they're going to be able to bring back on the 10% they had to furlough or lay off in the coming weeks as Mexico and the Caribbean comes back online. So I thought that was just really positive news. I wanted to share outwardly that there are hotels that are able to do the right thing and be good by their employees. And, you can expect that experience is going to be pretty awesome when you go and stay there because people are going to be thankful.
Oh, I think that's amazing. Well, kudos to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so along those lines, man, I mean, tons and tons of great stuff. One thing was really, really eye-opening to me. I was talking with Mandarin Oriental earlier this week, and they brought up a really interesting idea and perspective of, now that some hotels are open and some of their properties are globally, what does it look like and feel like as a guest in a luxury setting? And so, they're very high end, very luxurious properties across the globe. And, a lot of luxury is interaction and it's face to face. And so she had brought up this brilliant idea that, we may have been a little later to the game with, promote or like actively sending out, this is our sanitation standard. But, along with that came, this is what the guest journey is going to feel like. And one of the most impressive things was they're going to essentially stratify their guests to a minimal extent and basically say, all right, well, you're in this bucket if you are really risk averse and you're very fearful of traveling, but you kind of have to. And then there's the middle bucket of like, I'm kind of indifferent, follow the guidelines and we'll be fine, masks, 6 feet, etc. And then the very risk tolerant. So folks that are like, you know what, it doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to get, sick, and please interact with me as you always have previously. And one of the cool things about that is that happens at the moment of check-in. So they'll go so far as to take you into a private setting and ask, how would you like your experience to be here? And if you're one of those risk intolerant people and say, hey, please at arm's length, and I'll text you when I need you, then they have an entire system set up to be able to do that and the inverse of that as well. So I just thought that was, I don't know, it was something that I hadn't heard up to this point, the importance of the guest journey, especially in that segment.
Yeah, I love that. I had an interesting call this morning with Patricia Badeau and her folks at Marina Bay Sands in Singapore, and they're taking a similar approach. Some of the things that they introduced, I think, are quite cool. Number one, there's now a new certification. We used to always focus on a green certification, so now there's going to be an actual certification in terms of a hotel being clean from viruses and these type of things. They have been able to do that. They're installing the thermal cameras and the other things around the property to ensure that there's certain safety. But they've introduced a tracker mechanism, which basically allows you to be geo-targeted by your phone. So let's say you're in an area and a person who was also in that area is found to be positive for a virus. They will be able to reach out to you later and connect with you. I know it's a little big brotherish, but it's also kind of cool in terms of prevention, because you would be able to know if there was a person within reason around you to be able to protect you later. So if you should go to Singapore, which is already known for being clean, this is one of the cool things that they put in place there at the hotel. I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and interesting, I think, is a very good way to put that. I mean, like any story, there's two sides to that. And so it is brilliant for them to be able to maintain that high level of standard to say, hey, we're worried about your health and well-being, and we're going to put mechanisms in place to protect you. But, for an American audience too, I know there's a lot of people and frankly, a lot of clients that would see that level of intrusion and access to your personal and professional information through your phone because it's pretty easily, and I'm sure there's some sort of government tie-in to that as is
Right.
prevalent in Asia. There's going to be a lot of American companies that just frankly aren't comfortable with that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where that goes. On another note, they even tested the employees and the members of the family, the immediate family, to ensure that the employee is free and clear before they come to work. So I thought that was a nice touch.
That totally. I mean,
Yeah.
I have to think that we'll continue to see more and more of that. I mean, there are places like Rosen Hotels in Orlando that have their own medical facility, and they kind of take the same approach. And so, you know, for some of these really strong, iconic brands, you know, it sounds like that most, if not all of them, are really doing the right thing and doing a good job of communicating that.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of communication, did you happen to catch Mike Dominguez's talk this week?
Yeah, you know what? I didn't, man. Tell me about that.
Well, I mean, he's always got a lot of good information to share, but one of the things I thought was particularly interesting this week was he talked about a company by the name of Nanoseptic, which has a product called NanoTouch. And this is a product that uses an oxidation method, which there's nanoparticles that mix with light to create this oxidation, and it provides a clean and sterile environment. So they have this being tested right now in the Canton, Akron, Ohio airport, and they're looking at putting this into hotels and some other places. So the great thing about this is you don't have to use chemicals, you don't have to use metals and other things, so there's no byproduct or anything to clean up afterwards. Pretty interesting.
Jeez. Well, and especially the chemical angle, like it's like I wish I came from a science background because that sounds very intriguing. But I think there's a ton of people that would say, man, if there's a way that we could do this without infusing a bunch of chemicals, like I'd really be on board with that. So that's,
yeah, you're right.
That's super promising.
There's a marketing company that did a research analysis on this, and they found that 60 to 70% of customers actually said they would look for a property or a location that uses this technology, and they would be willing to buy. So I think you're right on with that.
Well, yeah. And I mean, maybe this is part of what I think you had discussed last week of COVID surcharges. I mean, I think people would be happy to include or would be fine with paying a bit of a premium if they knew that things like that were associated with the money that they're paying. I think that's
This
kind
is
of brilliant.
true. This is true. Hey, did you see that Katie got a contract this week?
Yes, man. Katie, just incredible. Like, I'm very thankful and lucky that we have her on our team.
Absolutely. I think one of the cool things about that is she was able to negotiate with the hotel two dates. One for the program date that they were expecting the program to happen, but they actually negotiated a fallback date. So let's say something were to happen and they weren't able to meet in, I think it was February, they have a fallback date of October that both the customer and the hotel were able to agree to. So she was able to negotiate a good plan for both of them.
Well, and what a creative way to do a win-win scenario. Because, I mean, if the property has the availability and is willing to make that kind of commitment to the client, like the client definitely is going to be making that commitment back to the property. I mean, that's an incredible way to do business. And I mean, people throw around partnership in that word pretty willy-nilly, but man, it's difficult to find a different or someone who isn't a partner that wants to engage in that kind of contract. I think it's fantastic. And kudos to Katie for thinking of that.
Yeah, and a shout out to the Park Aviara.
Yeah, kudos. Well, here's to you, Park Aviara. Park Aviara. Cheers.
And with that,
jeez, man. Here's to a good end of the week, my man. Thank you again.
Absolutely.
Good to see you.
Take care.